my mom told me that Satan was using my father to try to get me to not get baptized. And I had to resist my father and resist Satan. I don't want them gone. I would love to have them in my life. You have to leave or they kick you out.
A switch point moment is a moment in time that fundamentally changes your life because of a connection you made with another human being. My name is Shawn P Neal, and this is the Switch Point Project. So I've got a serious question for you today. What do you do when everything that you believed, like everything that you felt and believed in the world, no longer aligned with who you were? What does that mean for the average person? It's really interesting to think about that, but very few of us find ourselves in a space where we really have to dive deep into that. And that's when I met Kassidy Beckstein. Kassidy is joining me today to talk about her experience growing up in the culture of being a Jehovah's Witness and then making a fundamental change in her life to leaving the organization and how that has shaped her and how it affects her to this day. So it's going to be a fascinating conversation, and there's a lot to learn in this from Kassidy. So stick around. I really want you to take a minute with this interview as I did. It's going to give you some really great insight. Let's have a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with Kassidy Beckstein. Kassidy, thanks so much for joining me. I'm really honored to have you on the Switchpoint Project.
Thank you so much for having me, Shawn.
Yeah. So a little background about you. First of all, we met in what's called the Happy Neighborhood Project. It's a networking group. We got to know each other a little bit in that circle. And then I heard you telling a story on your Facebook page, and it really intrigued me, and it was kind of moving. And so that's why I invited you here today to talk a little bit about that. So I don't want to tell your story for you. I'll kind of get the ball rolling here and then you can take over. But you were raised as a Jehovah's Witness.
Yep. And
you have lived as a Jehovah's Witness most of your life until what, about 2 years ago? 3?
Oh, no. It's been like 7 years now.
Oh, 7. Okay.
Yeah. We call it waking up when you actually realize it's not true, like versus just leaving and not going to the meetings anymore. I actually woke up about 4 years ago.
Interesting. So there's a whole thing that we can kind of dive into here, where, you know, this is how you grew up and the beliefs that you had. And, you know, I'm not here by any means to say that any of this is wrong. I think we had talked about previously, there are people, you know, this is their life and this is absolutely something that is for them. This is something that, you know, works in their life. You grew up in the Jehovah's Witness culture and you kind of found yourself fluctuating along the way. I'd love to know a little bit about your experience growing up, and then maybe we can start to kind of dive into when you started finding yourself at odds with the things that you were raised on.
Yeah, well, I was a very, very good Jehovah's Witness. I was a very good one. All I wanted was to do the witness stuff. All I wanted was to be a missionary. I was going to find a husband and we were going to go. And Jehovah's Witness missionaries get a one-way ticket. And you don't come back unless you get pregnant or sick or retire.
Wow.
Or something drastic happens and you need to leave for some reason. Other than that, you get a one-way ticket and you go there for like the foreseeable future. And that's all I wanted. I was so excited. Jehovah's Witnesses are not supposed to get baptized until they're like able to decide to devote their lives to God. So usually like teenagers or adults, usually not kids. I got baptized when I was 10.
And let's give everybody a little bit of context. So when you're a Jehovah's Witness, your family is ingrained in the culture, meaning this isn't like I go to church on Sundays. This is...
You go to church on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and then Saturday you go and knock on doors. And if you're not in school... So before I was in school, I went and knocked on doors 4 days a week. My mom did it for 90 hours a month. And I went with her. And that's what I did before I went to kindergarten. I was like a little pioneer. That's what they're called. They're called pioneers. It's every single day. So Sunday we had the meeting. Monday I had a personal study. Tuesday they had a meeting. Wednesday we went to my dad's house where we had a family study because they were Jehovah's Witnesses too. My dad was in and out like 4 times. Thursday we have my mom's first family study. Friday we have the study with my mom or my stepdad. Saturday you go and knock on doors. And then Sunday you have the meeting again. And every single meeting and every time you go and knock on doors, that all requires preparation of at least a couple hours. And so every morning you read the daily text, and every night at dinner, after dinner, you read a couple chapters of the Bible, depending on what chapter we're on for the Tuesday night meeting. There's like a whole thing.
Yeah, and it is who you are. It becomes your identity. Is that a fair thing to say?
Absolutely.
So, at what point, when you think about being younger, and at what point did you start to feel that wasn't aligning with you anymore? Because it's interesting to me that, at 10, you were so ingrained in this and so ready to just go take on the world as a Jehovah's Witness. And then somewhere along the line, things started shaking loose. So what was that for you?
Yeah. Well, when I went to get baptized, my mom and dad were fighting about it. They had been divorced since I was like 2, both remarried when I was young. And they were really opposed to each other because my dad didn't want me to get baptized and my mom really, really did. And my dad had been kicked out before, so he knew what it was like to have his family shun him. And he knew that if I got baptized when I was so young, then that was way more of a likely chance that I was going to be shunned if I decided to leave. Because if you don't get baptized, you're not really in. So, like, people don't usually shun you. They just, like, consider you, like, a prospect still in, like, sales terms.
Interesting. So, and what I just caught there is you kind of talked about it in sales terms. That's an interesting way to approach it. Yeah. What is it about being
Well, you go knock on doors all the time. And you go, so, knock, knock, knock.
Oh, hello.
Hi, my name is Kassidy. What's your name?
My name is Shawn.
Hey, Shawn, it's great to meet you. Have you ever wondered what God's name is?
And so right there, you're feeling as if you're pitching the product, or
that was my first presentation when I was like 4.
Wow.
So, and then you say whatever you say, and I say, well, I happen to have a Bible here, and you say whatever you say, and I say, well, let's see what the Bible says. At Psalm 83:18, it says blah blah blah, which I know, and it's just. Yeah, it's just all you do. You practice for it. You go to school, and that's your own personal territory because, like, the kids at school are going to die in Armageddon if you don't save them because no one else can save them because the adults can only save other adults. They can't really talk to kids. That would be creepy. Everybody knows that. So the kids can talk to the kids. And so that's why that's why some of them go to public school. And, like, that's not necessarily true for all of them. There's a lot of very chill Jehovah's Witnesses that are not extreme. I just was raised by very, very extreme people.
Sure. So you've got this kind of indoctrinated culture that you're in. You've got a lot of pressure. I mean, let's be honest. Talking about saving, the people of the world that's pressure to put on you to make sure that you're able to do the job.
My mom told me that Satan was using my father to try to get me to not get baptized. And I had to resist my father and resist Satan. And, like, that's a screwed up thing to tell a 10-year-old.
It's really, that's a struggle because at 10, you trust everybody that's in your life are people you're supposed to be able to trust.
And it's like my parents. And they're so at odds with so many things, especially because they were both Jehovah's Witnesses at this time in good standing. Like, my dad was not a bad Jehovah's Witness. He was following all the rules. He was we went out in service. We did all the things. And they ignored him because my stepfather was technically the head of my spiritual household because I lived with him like 60% of the time over the 40% of the time I lived with my father.
Right.
Really, because my stepfather had some authority and was what's called a ministerial servant and was a very, very good witness, even though he's awful. He's a very good witness, even though he's a terrible person. So, of course, they were going to listen to him over my dad, who was like a pretty good witness, but wasn't like anything exceptional. He wasn't like a pioneer and a ministerial servant like my stepdad was. So they listened to my stepdad.
You see behind the curtain.
And I've always seen behind the curtain. And so it's always been really weird. So up until I was like 10, I was really, really into it. And then honestly, by the time I was like 12, mentally, I still believed so much of it. But I was like, something here is wrong. Like, something here seems off. If I rolled my eyes at my mom because she asked me to do the dishes and she asked me to do it 5 seconds ago and I just hadn't gotten to it yet because whatever, then I'm disrespecting her. And disrespecting her is disrespecting my stepfather because he's really the head of the household. And disrespecting my mom and stepfather is disrespecting the arrangement that God put in place. And disrespecting the arrangement that God put in place means that you're not worshiping God correctly because you're not listening and not following what he wants you to do. And you can only worship God or Satan. So Kassidy, who are you really worshiping?
Yeah. And that also has to really, like, when you think about the fact that now as an adult, you go into the world, that has to impact when you're making a decision, when you're doing something, when you're trying to do the right thing and you wrestle with this. Did I do the right thing? Do you find that carries over in 7 years later, that you still have those ghosts that kind of come back to visit? And
oh yeah, of course. Like, so much, especially if I see anything related to Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, God, my friend's relative has the initials JW, and like it came up on our computer and my friend was like, look, it's these people, and I was just like, please change it, because that will literally just freeze me every time. I didn't Google Jehovah's Witnesses until 4 years after I left, because it was so ingrained in me that I wasn't supposed to look at any website other than their own.
So what was your reaction when you first started reading outside of their website, when you started Googling? And
the first thing I saw was this thing called Faith to Faithless, about people that have left extremist organizations or religions, and it's on YouTube. It's very accessible, and there was a comedian lady, and she was amazing, talking about Jehovah's Witnesses and talking about how when you're a Jehovah's Witness, you're not supposed to be friends with anyone who's not a Jehovah's Witness. You're supposed to be acquaintances with them. You're supposed to try to make them into a Jehovah's Witness. But they literally have stated that you cannot get true friendship outside the organization. Like, my mom believes firmly that I do not have any true friends because I am not in her religion, and no one in the world can actually be trusted. If you decide it's not the truth, for whatever reason, like, I didn't hate any of them. I don't hate any of them. I don't want them gone. I would love to have them in my life. I just don't think it's the truth. And then if you don't think it's the truth, you have to leave or they kick you out. And then you're just alone.
Yeah. You talked about something in your Facebook post that you called, I think it was conditional love.
Yeah.
And I think that we oftentimes use words like unconditional love very freely. We say them and we maybe don't think a lot about what they mean. Tell me what, in your opinion, your beliefs now on this conditional love are, and where it leaves you as a human in this world.
It's really hard. Like, I am very lucky because I still have part of my family. I have my dad and my stepmom, and I have my siblings, and I have my mom's whole family, and I'm part of my dad's family. And I was really lucky to be able to still like salvage those relationships. Especially because the ones with like my mom's family, they weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, they were worldly. I didn't develop a relationship with them until I was like 17, 18 and old enough to drive, and I actually drove out to see them because I didn't have a way to see them before. And my mom didn't have us see her family once she married my stepdad. So I was really lucky to keep my family. But other than that, everyone I knew and ever talked to and had a relationship from the age of 19 and younger acts like I'm dead. So the idea that like love is unconditional, it's not that I disagree. It's really hard for me to think like this person is never going to leave no matter what. Even if I did the worst possible thing, that concept is really hard for me. Like the fact that serial killers have their mom in jail when they're on trial or they're going to prison, and like I don't have my mom because I don't go to her church, so she acts like I'm dead.
Yeah. Because
I have like too many piercings in my ear.
And you're really getting into a space, and I hope people are paying attention because, we have kids, the age that you were talking about, 10, 11, 12, 13, who are coming into a space of actualization of who they are. And they're struggling with having a conversation with their family because of the exact things that you're talking about. And so these things get shoved down, pushed down, can't let my family know who I really am. And that becomes depression, and depression can lead to suicide. And then we've got real problems. So I hope that people are paying attention. It's not that we have to agree with somebody. It's not that Kassidy's parents necessarily have to agree with you that, this is the right way, but acceptance may be a key word here. Do you agree that maybe being able to accept someone for who they are?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's really a shame. Like, my family, they stopped talking to me 5 years ago. They don't know me. The person I am today versus the person I was at 21 are very different people. Like, 26-year-old Kassidy lives in Las Vegas and is licensed in 33 states for insurance purposes. 21-year-old Kassidy was a wreck who was going to college, who was just trying to get through the day.
So much growth there. So much time spent on yourself.
And like, they wouldn't be proud of me because I'm not a witness. Because that's all they want. They don't care if I'm successful in other ways. Like, yes, they don't want me to like suffer and torture and die, but like, they don't want me to be successful either.
So going through that separation, I know that you had to make some very difficult choices. One of them being, as you said, your family and your friends. When you dissect that and you think about that time, what were some things that you leaned, and actually I'm going to preface this because a lot of people will say I leaned into my faith. Mm-hmm. What are the things that you leaned into to help you get through those difficult times when maybe you question if you were making the right move or doing it the right way? How did you get through it?
So I really, to some extent, threw myself into the religion more to see, because, okay, so when I was 18, my family kind of stopped going, like my dad and stepmom and everyone kind of stopped going, and I was like, I don't really want to go, and I started dating someone from school, and then I was like, I don't want to date you anymore, I want to be a Jehovah's Witness, and that's just unrealistic, you would need to actually be a Jehovah's Witness, and you're only doing this for me, so whatever. And so I went back by myself, and then I started studying with a Jehovah's Witness who was like older than me and who was a very good Jehovah's Witness, like of high standing in the congregation, for as high as you can be as a lady. And I really tried to get answers to all of my questions, and they didn't answer any of my freaking questions. That's really what happened. I went back, and I was just like, how can there only be 144,000 people going to heaven, and how has that number not been hit yet? Like, how has the number not been hit yet? That's the only thing I have. Like that seems like an issue. And then there's the scripture in Zechariah chapter 5, and I don't understand it, and there's no explanation for it in any of the Jehovah's Witness literature. And, like, all they wanted me to do was go through the little kid bull crap that I already knew and just repeat it over and over and over and over again, because when you have what's called the dangers of independent thinking, you're supposed to memorize a scripture and repeat it like a mantra, which is literally a brainwashing technique.
That's not the answer I expected either. So you actually... No, so you actually walked away and then
went
came back to say, look, I'm willing to give this a second chance, but I have to have answers.
Yeah. And when I didn't get the answers, I basically was like, I don't think this is the truth. They told me that I was going to be allowed to go back out and knock on doors again. And I didn't want to at all. I didn't want to go tell people, yeah, come be a Jehovah's Witness with me. Like, not after all of the crap I went through and all of the bad people that I saw being treated like gods because they just happened to have a position of authority in the congregation.
So this is where we go into integrity. I mean, this is about, really, it's about you knowing who you are and what you believe versus the external forces that say this is where you should be. Mm-hmm. And so integrity coming into yourself and saying, I need to make a move that is true to who I am. Mm-hmm. So you made that move. And then as you were going through that process, as you know, I'm sure you explored, the whole gamut of what the world outside of that life looked like. And you got to know people and you got to talking to them. Did you find that friendship started coming easier for you, or were you struggling to make friends as you went through the process?
I grew up in a really toxic environment, so forming relationships with people, I mean, I just feel like they're never going to actually stay around forever, and it's just hard. Because if anyone was going to stay around forever, you'd think it'd be my family, you'd think it'd be the people that grew up with me and all of that, but what can you do, Like, they really, really think the end of the world is coming soon, and they're scared. They're just terrified that I'm going to die.
So you've come 7 years through this. You have a successful business now. You're doing your thing. Looking back across everything that we've kind of talked about and everything that it was your life prior to, what would you say is the thing at this point that you really find to be the most grateful piece for you? Like, what, when you dig deep, and I'm I know we talk gratitude a lot, but like digging deep into gratitude, like what is it today that you're just genuinely deeply grateful for?
I would say I'm really grateful I was able to get out, because the environment is so toxic, in the way they treat women, in the way they treat anyone who's not straight, in the way they treat, like, children, and it's just, I'm really glad I got out. I'm really glad I was able to, I'm really glad I'm able to reach out to people that are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and let them know that they're not by themselves and they're not alone and they're not just going to be stuck in this horrible cycle of working part-time because that's all they've ever done to support themselves, and then not knowing what to do and not knowing how to save for retirement. I told you my job was going to come into this, and not knowing how to save for retirement because they don't know how to plan their lives. If you don't know how to plan your life, if you think that God's going to kill everybody in 5 years, I'm sorry, you don't. I remember being in school, taking one of those job quizzes and laughing at how the world was not going to be around by the time I graduated high school. Are you kidding me? 2013 was never going to happen. Never. And like, obviously it did. So,
What was that like? Like, what was it like watching that
weird.
Come and go?
It was really weird. I really did not ever expect to make it to 25.
Yeah, I remember back in, gosh, now I'm going to date myself, 1999. And the whole world was worried that when the clock struck midnight on December 31st and everything on our computers would switch over to 2000, that our computers weren't set to manage the date properly and that things would start shutting down. And I remember I was in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I was in this big hotel. I was working at the time. I was doing sound for a concert that was happening for New Year's Eve. And I remember we all stood out in this big lobby looking up at, I don't know, 50 some stories, I guess, of hotel rooms in the center of the hotel, getting ready for the balloon drop and waiting on the power to go out. And it never happened. The balloons fell, the lights stayed on. Phone calls came in that were like, yeah, we're fine. Nothing happened. Is it a sigh of relief that you have when 2013 passes and you're like,
no,
wow,
it's just increasing anxiety. It's just increasing anxiety because it's 2013 was just like the year that I had set in my brain.
Sure.
Because I was like, there's no way I'll graduate high school. Like, that's just too far out. They are just it's going to come soon. 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 I remember in 2010, maybe, we had the Circuit Overseers visit, which Jehovah's Witnesses will know what that means. We had a fancy guy come and visit. And I remember talking to her, and she was saying how after the previous convention that they had, because I used to go to conventions for that, like, all the time, after the previous convention they had, people were like angry they had to go back to work and how close we are to the end and how she can tell that this is the end times and it's coming. And that was 10 years ago. Part of me wants to like go to my mom and sister and say, hey, if the world doesn't end in the next like 30 years, will you talk to me again?
Yeah. Yeah. Because
can we make some twisted deal? Like, I know you won't follow through on it, but like, come on. I know if you really believe it's not going to be that long, can you just agree to talk to me in 40 years?
Yeah. And you're talking, there's no communication at all, right?
Yeah. I mean, if someone in the family's dying, we'll let each other know. But that's like a short phone call. And other than that, if I saw my mom in a grocery store, she would look away.
So talking to, maybe it's a Jehovah's Witness, maybe it's, someone who is facing, the need or the desire to come out, to their parents, someone who is facing that type of anxiety and worry and concern that who they are may conflict with the world that they live in. What would you say to them right now? What would be your best piece of advice going forward?
That there are resources available for you. And if you don't know where to find them, literally my phone number is on LinkedIn. Text me. I will help you find them. Whatever situation you're in, there are resources available. For ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, there's like a Reddit. There's tons of Facebook groups of all these ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. Even if you're a current Jehovah's Witnesses, there's a bunch of groups. If you're confused about your beliefs, or if you are part of the LGBTQ plus community and you have any questions or concerns, or you don't know who to talk to, literally, give me a call. If you are in crisis mode, if I can't help you, I will find someone to help you. Because you're not alone, and you deserve to have people that love you and care about you unconditionally. If you feel like you're panicking and you need somebody, at least you know that I'm there.
That's awesome. And what I hope and pray is that if there's somebody out there listening that hears that will be their calling card, that they will hear your voice and know that they are not alone. So I think, we've talked about a lot, but I think it's a great way to wrap it up, because I know you've been through a lot and your experience is in your words, it's in your eyes. and it's in your soul. And I appreciate you sharing all of those things with me and with everybody that will hear this. So thank you so much, Kassidy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to talk.
Absolutely. And we'll be looking for you soon. By the way, tell people what the best way is if they have, I don't want to misquote, but any health insurance needs. Is that a good space?
So any benefits.
Okay.
Benefits. So any benefits you want to get from a big fancy job. So like your retirement plan, your life insurance, your health insurance, your disability, your legal services, all that crap. I can get you that without the fancy job.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like it. That's simple.
Thank you.
That's simple to understand. So there you have it. All right.
Yeah, so, LinkedIn, Facebook. My name is Kassidy Beckstein. It is just Kassidy Beckstein on LinkedIn and Facebook. It's easy to find me. My phone number is all over my LinkedIn, so you can look at you can actually schedule an appointment with me on my calendar from my contact info on LinkedIn.
Perfect. All right, so everybody reach out to her for any of the things that we've talked about today. She's an amazing human being, and I knew when I heard that link or that Facebook post that you were somebody that your voice needs to be heard. So thank you again for joining me, Kassidy.
Thank you so much for having me.
The Switchpoint Project is part of the Switchpoint Media Network. Switchpoint Media creates raw and revealing conversations that explore the intersection of self and social awareness, growth, and authentic human connection. For more great podcasts and videocasts, be sure to join us at switchpoint.media.